We'll kick off with just, the plan here is to have three introductory talks, just to kind of get us into the mood. Then we can kind of talk about what some of the objectives are, and then a few quick case studies before we get into the real discussion. So with that, I will hand over to Penny Langhammer, and Penny, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Penny Langhammer. I am the co-chair of the WCPA SSC Joint Task Force on Biodiversity and Protected Areas. And I'm going to start off the session by talking about sites that contribute significantly to the global persistence of biodiversity. So we all know that biodiversity is not distributed evenly across our planet. And neither are the threats to that biodiversity. And we are in the situation where some areas of amazing importance for biodiversity are at risk of disappearing altogether. There has been a great demand for decades now across society to know where are the sites of particular importance for biodiversity. And the effort to identify important biodiversity sites was pioneered by BirdLife International 4 decades ago with their Important Bird and Biodiversity Areas approach. This approach has been replicated to other taxonomic groups and ecosystems with the Important Plant Areas approach, Prime Butterfly Areas, Alliance for Zero Extinction sites, important sites for the conservation of freshwater biodiversity, or freshwater key biodiversity areas, and key biodiversity areas in the terrestrial and marine realms as well. A lot of freshwater key biodiversity areas have already been identified to date for parts of, so this is a slide contributed by Dr. Will Darwell, who I'm representing here in part, who runs the freshwater program at IUCN, and he wanted me to share with you the progress in freshwater key biodiversity areas to date. So basically, KBAs in the freshwater realm have been identified for the Mediterranean Basin and the Western Ghats of India, also in Africa. And there will be planned workshops in the tropical Andes, Canada, and Lake Victoria Basin. And this methodology for the identification of freshwater key biodiversity areas, basically the methodology was developed and the criteria and thresholds refined using the freshwater species data sets for all of continental Africa in the paper by Holland et al. 2012. And they delineated the sites based on river and lake subcatchment boundaries. So that's the status to date. What I wanted to talk to you about is, so back in 2004, the membership of IUCN passed a resolution requesting IUCN to convene a worldwide process to agree a methodology to enable countries to identify key biodiversity areas. So there are all of these different approaches, important bird areas and important plant areas and important freshwater areas. And the membership saw the need for sort of an overarching framework for the identification of key biodiversity areas. And in 2009, the task force that I co-chair was convened with this objective to convene this consultative process. So what are key biodiversity areas? These are sites that contribute significantly to the global persistence of biodiversity in terrestrial, freshwater, and marine environments. They're identified using globally standardized criteria and thresholds typically by national constituencies. They may or may not be formal protected areas, but should be managed in ways that ensure the persistence of the biodiversity for which they are important. And they're valuable tools to guide decision making, such as the strategic expansion of the protected area network under IG Target 11. So what is this IUCN standard? You might have heard about it before. I'm here to tell you just a little bit about it and then invite you to the session immediately following this one where we'll go into great detail. But basically this is the effort led by this Joint Task Force on Biodiversity and Protected Areas with input of hundreds of experts to develop an overarching framework to harmonize existing approaches to identify important sites for biodiversity. It is a globally standardized criteria and methodology. and builds on 30 plus years of experience in identifying important sites, as I said before, IBAs, AZE sites, freshwater KBAs, etc. And the standard also supports the identification of additional sites that, for components of biodiversity that have not been addressed by existing approaches. The criteria, the KBA criteria, can be used to identify sites that contribute significantly to the global persistence of threatened biodiversity, geographically restricted biodiversity, ecological integrity, biological processes, and also there's a fifth criterion that identifies sites through comprehensive quantitative analysis of irreplaceability. So the past few years have resulted in this document, this consultation document on an IUCN standard for the identification of key biodiversity areas. This is what I've been spending a lot of my time over the last couple of years on. And this document is currently available online. The consultation is open through the end of November, and we really value the input in particular from the freshwater community, which has been underrepresented in almost everything. So we really encourage you to have a look at this document, let us know what you think, and provide a formal input into the process. But in addition to that, we're also having a session immediately following this one where we'll go into detail on this standard and have a series of breakout groups that will explore different areas of the methodology, such as the criterion thresholds or how it might be implemented, what is the relationship with existing approaches, etc. So that's immediately following in the South Bay room. Then tomorrow there are 2 additional sessions on key biodiversity areas. One on how different sectors use data on key biodiversity areas to inform their work, panel discussion, and then also a series of case studies on identifying and conserving KBAs, experiences from around the world. We're going to have presentations from the Philippines, India, Brazil, Europe, a wide range of presentations, and then also a social event tomorrow night in the Protected Planet Pavilion. So with that, I just wanted to provide that context and advertisement. Welcome your input into the consultation of this standard. It's really important that we get your feedback, and I wanted to thank all of the hundreds of people and also the organizations who've been instrumental in developing this standard so far. Thank you.